Attaboy.
But this weekend, Derby dello Tito, Lazio Salernitana. I mean, I don't know what the whole situation is with Lotito and Salernitana, but I think he had to sell the club, right?
So yeah, he was ordered to sell the club, under Serie A regulations. I don't believe the final sale ended up going through, so I think there's a lot of stuff still pending. So technically, he has a stake in the club, but I think there is a separation from his involvement as they go through this process of actually trying to hand off that ownership to another party. But Derby dello Tito, I thought that was funny. So, but it was a big match for Lazio. Regardless of the ownership side, I mean, Lazio's seen some ups and downs this season that we all knew was expected. So this one was, given the opponent, it certainly wasn't anything for us to expect 3 points going into, because we've been rummaged by a couple clubs that I would not have thought were going to bring it to us. So I think this one was an absolutely critical match for Lazio.
No, and I agree. And you know what? A dominant performance, right? Shawn, like you said, Lazio has had their. Well, listen, I think it was never going to be, like, before we break it down, it was never going to be easy, obviously, with Sarri coming, Sarri coming in, and just everything working, like, you flip a switch and everything is going to be, A-okay. I personally thought it was always going to be, the long-term thing. I think any level-head, Calcio fan who follows Serie A, who's followed Sarri's career just a tad, knows that that's kind of the process, right? So, and we saw the derby match. We saw other matchups like you mentioned, Shawn, of teams that really took it to Lazio. And you kind of scratch your head and you're like, really, like this Lazio team? Like we see the lineups. We see the team that they have, and we always like to say that they're very competitive and their starting 11. Maybe barring certain positions, can go toe to toe with pretty much anybody in the league, right? So a statement win against Salernitana, and I know it's Salernitana, but still, these are the points that you need to pick up if you want to make any type of run of anything. If it's Scudetto, if it's a Champions League, Europa League, whatever it is, these are the points and these are the games that you need to capitalize on. Just two things I kind of wanted to bring up, like how were you shocked about it being such a statement win? And it was great to see that, obviously, your boy Ciro on the score sheet. Pedro, who we have a question for, so maybe I'll save it for later, but about Pedro, but he gets on the score sheet. And then Luis Alberto, just getting on the score sheet at the end, and just the emotion that you saw there. Are things starting to slowly turn around for you, or like what'd you make of more of the game and just the mentality going forward for Lazio?
Yeah, so it's one of those matches on paper you expect.
Yeah,
you expect to win, but again, given this Lazio team, a 3-0 loss to Bologna, a 4-1 loss to Verona, there's no givens. And I think you guys know, we know Serie A and we pay attention to it. I think that's the beauty of this league is, honestly, there are very little givens.
There's no easy games in Serie A, Shawn. There's no easy games.
So we know this, but particularly with this Lazio squad. And not to throw shade at Roma and their fans, but I always get, given the opportunity. But I think there's a difference in the way, and this is not a generalization for all Roma fans, but many Lazio
the other way. And just
many Lazio fans went into this season with the understanding that this was going to be a project, that we're changing managers, we are changing our formations from a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3. You can't go through one transfer window and get all of the players that are accustomed to that. We know that Sarri's system takes a while to grasp. I mean, you saw his frustrations, with the roster that he had at Juventus. And obviously, despite their challenges, they have a roster that, and resources that are far superior to what Lazio has. So we knew it was going to be a project. And so most fans came into this pretty level-headed, like, look, let's be happy for any European spots this year. We know it's going to be a project. That's that. Whereas at least the conversations that I saw from a lot of Romanisti on their side was, I heard Scudetto talk from people. I heard Champions League talk from people, and I'm shaking my head, and I don't think Jose Mourinho has it anymore. But regardless, bringing in a new manager, making a lot of changes. We know they had to make wholesale changes to their roster. They had to get rid of a lot of dead weight. So I just thought there was a difference in the way that many fans entered the season, and so for me, I expected ups and downs. What was really nice to see from Lazio is, and honestly, this is Inzaghi did a really good job, and the squad still has this mentality. They wake up for big matches, and so you saw it in the derby this year. You saw it against Inter. Despite the crushing goal at the end of the match, which saw us draw level with Atalanta. Again, another big match that we find points out of. So this Lazio team knows how to bring it when it matters for big matches, but we've seen them lose some of that focus when it comes to some of your quote-unquote smaller sides. And so I think the Salernitana win was really big because it allowed us to build on some consistency, certainly allowed us to enter international break off of a high, and it allowed us to click. And I think we are now seeing what our best 11 actually is, with some changes with a player like Cataldi. So going into international break, shout out to Cataldi, uno di noi. He's from Romano, and to see him, getting another call up to the national team 6 years since the first time he was ever called up, is a massive, massive testament to Sarri's work and trust in him. And we've seen now, we talk about Lazio as a starting 11, and they certainly don't have the depth to really, really compete on multiple fronts, but they actually are starting to show signs of having some midfield depth, because now you have a player like Leva who comes off the bench or allows us to rotate between a Cataldi and Leva. You've got a guy like Basic who has shown to be a really, really strong player, a player that is going to be really, really handy for Lazio moving forward. And so we're seeing some signs that, and a player like Akbaro is good quality off the bench. He shouldn't be starting a ton of matches. And so we're seeing some opportunities where maybe this side can compete for a top 4, because we always expected there to be a bumpy road. I expected that bumpy road to be really early in the season as we start figuring it out. We're about a third of the way through. We're at this November international break. For us to be a point out, behind Atalanta for a top 4 spot, it's really positive. So I'm certainly, pretty happy with where we're at right now.
I mean, I just want to banter back a little bit, because I'm not going to take the Romanista comment face down, but it's all in good fun. But yeah, I do agree that some of the extremists, for lack of a better term, were, as soon as Mourinho came in, Champions League talk. I said it from day one. I think realistically a top 4 finish for Roma is possible. Obviously, there's going to be some growing pains, but I don't expect them to win the Scudetto anytime soon. But shifting to my other team, Napoli, they had Sarri for many years, and you know what? I actually enjoyed Sarri ball. It was very offensive, it was very creative, it was very nice to watch. But it wasn't built over in a day. Obviously, it took some time. It took some developing of players. Do you think Lazio has the capacity? I'm not saying that they're incompetent, but I'm saying that they have the capacity to eventually grow into Sarri ball. Do you think Sarri's a good fit for the team down the line? Or do you honestly believe that it would be cute to see, but you think there's probably somebody better for the squad later on down the road?
Oh, no, I'm all in on Sarri. And again, I mean, we've seen really great, at this point, it's more than glimpses. We've seen enough to see that this squad is capable. Certainly, they're going to have to be transfers made. Like our defensively, we've got to get better. Acerbi can't play forever. Luis Felipe is actually on the pitch, which is nice, because that's been the big knock from him is staying healthy. But we still need some depth in that area. So, but from like the squad that we have and their ability to grasp Sarri ball, it's there. I mean, you see players like Felipe Anderson and Pedro absolutely just playing at elite levels. I mean, this is Felipe Anderson's biggest knock, even dating back to his first run at Lazio. Love the player, own one of his kits. On his day, he's absolute world class, but it's, he'll go a couple matches in between world class appearances where he just disappears, and so he can be a very frustrating player. What's been refreshing to see is under Sarri, game in and game out, he's one of our most impactful players. Right now, the trio of Ciro Immobile, Pedro, and Felipe Anderson is a top 4 scoring unit in all of Europe. And so you're getting production. Yeah. And Pedro looks like a player 10 years his younger. I mean, the energy, that's the energy. It's 89th, 90th minute, and this guy, is still on the pitch, literally everywhere. In his own defensive side, he's in every attacking position. Sometimes I forget what position he's even playing because he's in the middle of the pitch. He's helping out on the right wing, left wing. And so those guys, and then Ciro Immobile, I can't speak enough about what he's able to do in this league because, here we are in a 4-3-3, right? And there's a lot of folks that he's not going to be able to succeed in a 4-3-3. Look what he does, for the Azzurri, and he's only able to do what he does because Simone Inzaghi and playing in a 3-5-2. And what is he doing? He's again leading the league in goals, going to be one of 2 players, to score 20 or more goals for as many times as he has. I mean, it's a historic run, and so he's again another player that is playing that Higuain role. And it's funny because when Sarri came on board, and this change to a 4-3-3 is happening, I'm hearing people say, well, Ciro can't play in a 4-3-3. Yeah. Never mind the fact that he's done it at other clubs, with success that he's had at Pescara or Torino. Forget that. It's he can't do it. Now that he's doing it, people are saying, oh, it's Sarri. Look what Sarri is able to do. He's like the Higuain. Well, Ciro already owns.
We can't win. You can't
Ciro
win.
has 36 goals, that Higuain had, with Simone. So, he's Sarri has this squad playing, and it's great to see. He's also, what I'm learning about him is really knows what buttons to press to motivate players. You take a guy like Luis Alberto. Luis Alberto started the season, and sometimes Luis needs a little bit of a kick in the ass, and Sarri came in and wasn't guaranteeing anything to anyone. And what I like about what he's done is he's given an opportunity to literally every player on the roster to shine. He's given everybody an opportunity, which is why you see a player like Cataldi get this chance and not let go of it. And so a player like Luis Alberto probably came into this season under Sarri assuming, hey, I'm a star player. I've got my roster spot. We're good. And Sarri ended up benching him for a number of matches and didn't have him in his starting 11. Came out and said, I cannot play Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto together because it opens us up defensively. That having both those guys on the pitch, which wasn't going to work. And this is straight out of Sarri's mouth. So he went in another direction. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic was the guy he was going to start. And so you had a player like Basic come in. You saw Akbro in our starting 11. And so then he inserts Luis Alberto a couple matches ago. And what do you see? You see a reinvigorated Alberto that realizes that he's going to have to fight for his position. And we've seen the Alberto of old. And so really great man management from Sarri that we know from a tactical standpoint. He knows his system and he knows what he wants and he can drill it down. But seeing him motivate a player like Alberto, and because that's such a tricky situation, because that could backfire. You can lose a player. And so just kind of understanding that really quickly, how he was going to have to motivate him, and you've seen some really stellar performances. I know you brought up Adriano, the goal he scored, a beautiful, beautiful goal. Nutmegs his defender, softly touches it into the back of the corner. And so they're playing, at a level. It's just doing it consistently. And then the challenge is rotation, and can we keep playing at this level with the same group of guys for an entire season? I think that's going to be the challenge is whether or not they run out of steam.